I found myself working the night shift at a gas station due to financial constraints and the need for a second job. For several months, I diligently fulfilled my duties during those late hours. However, after about 2 or 3 months, a peculiar man became a regular visitor. He would always show up around 2 a.m., standing tall at about 6 feet, with long, unkempt hair. His routine consisted of purchasing a tall boy of alcohol and swiftly leaving the store. Gradually, he began taking an interest in me, asking for my name. As I shared my name, he repeated it with amusement, chuckling to himself. Opening his newly bought tall boy, he strolled out of the store, engaging in a drunken monologue. This particular night sparked my curiosity, leading me to observe if he was driving under the influence. To my surprise, he veered away from the gas station property, confirming my suspicion. It dawned on me that he never once bought gas during his visits. His sole purpose was to procure alcohol. This pattern persisted, with him appearing almost every night. Sometimes he was noticeably more intoxicated than others, while on certain occasions, he would lean against the shelves in silence, not uttering a word. Nevertheless, he consistently greeted me with a casual, "Hey, Rod," upon entering. One night, he stood by a shelf, silently consuming his tall boy, fixating his gaze on a wall. I finally mustered the courage to inquire about his name. After a brief pause, he looked at me and replied, "Bob." It struck me as a generic pseudonym one would choose when fabricating their identity. I wondered if he had inadvertently rhymed it with my name, Rod. Nonetheless, I went along with it, asking him where he worked. His laughter boomed, startling me, as he revealed that he was unemployed, having been wronged by the government. Though he appeared angry, he strangely acknowledged,
"I like you, Rob. You seem like you know what you're doing."
Puzzled by his statement, he promptly exited the store. Days went by without encountering him, which was unusual for a regular like him. Bob always emitted an unsettling, mildly creepy vibe. It was evident that something troubled him in his personal life, compounded by his perpetual state of inebriation. Then, one stormy night, the gas station had fewer customers due to the inclement weather. The sound of the front door chime rang through the air, and instinctively, I anticipated Bob's arrival. To my astonishment, it was indeed him, albeit a much more menacing version. He stood before me, completely drenched, devoid of a raincoat or umbrella. Clad in a dark shirt and jeans, his long hair dripping wet, he fixated on the wall with an anger-laden expression, while his mind seemed to wander aimlessly. His posture, blankly gazing at nothing, soaked to the bone, sent chills down my spine. Tentatively, I inquired if he was all right, but he remained motionless, his head unmoving, as he uttered,
"I did something really bad."
Anxiously, I probed further, asking what he had done. His gaze met mine, and after a brief pause, he uttered,
"I need somewhere to hide."
Bob proceeded to bypass me at the register and disappeared into the narrow hallway leading to the restroom. He entered one of the rooms, and I could hear the door closing behind him. An increasing unease settled within me. I never enjoyed Bob's presence in the store, and that night, there was an undeniable air of disturbance surrounding him. He resembled a zombie, and his remark about doing something terrible was profoundly unsettling. Time passed, and Bob did not emerge from the bathroom. I assumed he had succumbed to his inebriation, either passing out or succumbing to sickness. Unwilling to intervene, I continued with my duties. Then, instantly, the lights in the store abruptly went out, enveloping it in complete darkness. Standing in a pitch-black gas station during a severe storm with an unhinged, intoxicated man, my heart raced. Using the flashlight concealed behind the counter, I cautiously navigated toward the back of the store, near the inventory storage and panel board. The restroom doors were situated within the same hallway. As I passed by, both doors stood ajar, but Bob was nowhere to be found inside either of them. Proceeding through the door to the back area, my intention was to reach the panel board. However, my footsteps halted as I caught a faint dripping sound emanating from somewhere within the room, accompanied by the squeaking of wet shoes. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over me, and in a feeble, terrified voice, I called out, "Bob?" The squeaking noise grew closer, just to my left. Directing my flashlight toward that corner, I was greeted by Bob's wide-open eyes as he lunged at me, bellowing,
"I'm gonna kill you."
Desperately, I pushed him away, his claws scratching at my back. Fleeing through the door to the front of the store, I found solace in the fact that he did not give chase. Hastily grabbing my rain jacket, I sprinted to my car, dialing 911, my trembling voice conveying the urgency of the situation to the operator. I remained on the line, providing updates until a pair of police officers promptly arrived and accompanied me inside. Bob was still concealed in the back room, huddled in a corner like a deranged creature, his dilated pupils revealing the influence of some substance. After recounting the events, the officers apprehended him and transported him to the station. It was only over a month later that I discovered Bob's real name was Martin, and he had gruesomely murdered his ex-wife on that very night he appeared at the gas station. In short, this harrowing experience shattered my desire to work night shifts or hold any job of its kind ever again. I've had my fair share of late-night drives in my younger days. My friends and I would roam the streets until the early hours, thinking we were cool. Looking back, it was just a foolish waste of time. Those late-night hours were often filled with drunk drivers and unpredictable individuals. It was one weekend night, nearing the ungodly hour of 4 a.m. I had just dropped off a friend after hanging out at a park, and now I needed to stop for gas before heading home. I always enjoyed refueling at night when the roads were deserted. Pulling into my regular gas station, not far from my parents' house, I noticed a short guy wearing a hood walking past me. He abruptly halted and stared me down as I walked by. I muttered a questioning "what" and kept moving, dismissing him as a typical crackhead. Inside the building, I paid the attendant for my gas and couldn't resist buying a lottery ticket. With my transactions complete, I ventured back outside to fill up my tank. The surroundings were as expected, a desolate ghost town at this hour. Once finished, I hopped back into my car and started my journey home. However, halfway through the drive, I heard a noise from behind me. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I froze in terror. There was someone in my back seat, peering back at me. The scream that erupted from my lungs could have shattered windows. I slammed on the brakes, frantically shouting at the intruder to get out. Panic overwhelmed me, and I knew I had to attract attention. "Help!" I screamed, knowing that some concerned souls would emerge from their homes. Sure enough, porch lights flickered on, and doors creaked open. The man hastily exited my car, taunting me with the chilling words,
"I could have slit your throat."
As my neighbors came out to investigate, he sprinted down the street, disappearing from sight. I didn't dare pursue him. I wasn't about to engage in a chase with a crackhead. Kind-hearted individuals approached me, offering their support and ensuring my safety. I recounted the harrowing experience of having a stranger in my back seat. By then, the intruder had vanished, and I decided against searching for him. Grateful for the concern shown by my neighbors, I resumed my drive home, cautiously scanning my surroundings for any sign of his presence. That night marked the most terrifying experience of my life, a stark reminder of the risks that come with late-night drives. This incident took place in the mid-60s, in the Atlanta area. I was around 8 or 9 years old at the time. My father was a teacher in a suburb of Atlanta, which was quite a distance from our home. Since I attended the same school where he taught, I would ride with him every day. However, due to the early start time, we had to wake up before the sun was up. It became our routine to stop for gas at a small independent station a few mornings each week. We were often the first customers, arriving shortly after the station opened. In those days, everything was full service. There was a booth with an attendant who would come out, fill the tank, and clean the windows, among other tasks. I remember he always had a lot of bills in his pocket, and he would use a device on his belt to count out coins. Behind the gas pumps, there were small bathrooms. On many mornings, during our stops, would use the restroom as it was a relatively long drive to school. One morning, as usual, we arrived before dawn, only to find the gas station completely deserted. It was eerily quiet, except for the sounds of passing traffic. There was no sign of the attendant in the booth or anywhere else around the station. My father honked the car horn once, then a few more times, but there was no response. We discussed possible reasons for his absence. Initially, my father suggested that the attendant might be in the bathroom, but when he still didn't appear, my father speculated that he may have experienced car trouble and couldn't make it to work on time. We waited for several more minutes, but no other cars arrived. I informed my father that I needed to use the bathroom and reached for the car door handle to get out. However, he told me that we couldn't wait any longer and that I could use the restroom at the next station we came across. So, we left, still wondering what had happened to the attendant. A day or two later, while my father was reading the local newspaper, I heard an exclamation of shock from him. Excitedly, he informed my mother and me about a small article he had come across. It stated that the body of a gas station attendant had been discovered with multiple stab wounds, stuffed into the men's bathroom of the very station we used to frequent. The article mentioned that the motive seemed to be robbery, as all the cash and coins were missing. Despite the early hour, the amount of money taken was likely not significant. The article did not provide any details regarding the exact amount stolen, but regardless, it didn't deter the killer. Ever since then, I've often pondered how deeply it would have affected me at such a young age if I had insisted on using the bathroom at that station and discovered the lifeless body of the murdered attendant upon opening the door. Needless to say, we never visited that gas station again.
This incident occurred when I was 25 years old. I found myself driving from North to South Texas, constrained by my work schedule, which allowed me to undertake this journey only during the late hours of the night. Route 281 served as my main route for the majority of the drive, and at these late hours, it was a straightforward drive, albeit challenging to keep myself awake. Exhausted from work and immediately hitting the road afterward, it was a grueling experience. To stay alert, I had to make frequent stops at random gas stations for coffee. On this particular night, I was starting to feel drowsy for the third time, and in addition to that, my fuel tank needed replenishing. I pulled into the first gas station I spotted on the desolate side roads. Regrettably, I can't recall the exact type of gas station. It might have been a Sunoco or Shell. There was another vehicle parked in the lot, and I positioned my car next to one of the pumps before heading inside. Inside the shop, I noticed two individuals, the cashier and another guy pacing back and forth along the aisles. Making my way to the coffee maker, I poured myself a cup. Suddenly, the pacing man approached me and made a feeble attempt to start a conversation by saying, "Careful, it's hot." It was an unsettling, creepy comment that I chose not to engage with, as I was in no mood for small talk. I didn't respond and proceeded to the cashier to pay for my coffee and gas. As I stood at the counter, the man who had approached me earlier came up from behind while I was paying and commented on liking my top. I offered a curt "Thank you," ensuring he could hear it. He followed up by asking where I was heading off to at such a late hour. Annoyed by this point, I firmly requested that he leave me alone. The cashier, a middle-aged Hispanic man, seemed unsure of his grasp of the English language or whether he fully understood the situation unfolding before him. Being smaller in stature, it was unlikely that he would intervene. The man persisted, saying, "Calm down," after I had asked him to leave me be. Without uttering another word, I left the shop and made my way to my car. A few seconds after I exited, I heard the door open again. I had reached my car and was preparing to fuel up. As the gas began flowing into my car, I heard footsteps on the concrete from the other side of the pumps. They abruptly ceased. Glancing over, I noticed the man standing on the other side of the pump I was using, eerily observing me. There was no car at that pump, and he wasn't refueling either. He just stood there, fixated on me. A surge of concern welled up within me, and I contemplated retrieving my pepper spray from the center console. The man inquired, "Are you alone?" At that moment, the gravity of the situation intensified. I responded with a quick, "No, my boyfriend is in the car," opening the door swiftly and discreetly grabbing the pepper spray, which I held at my side while pretending to focus on pumping gas. The man began inching his way around the gas pump, seemingly attempting to approach my side. He remarked, "I don't see anyone in the car." I brandished the pepper spray, aiming it at him. He laughed and retreated, claiming he was merely trying to strike up a conversation. As he walked backward, his gaze remained fixed on me. With the gas pumping almost complete, I felt a clang and heard the flow abruptly cease. My tank was full. Realizing I had about $6 worth of change that I needed to retrieve, I decided to go back inside the shop. The man positioned himself between the shop and me. It was a critical decision I had to make. With my arms still raised, holding the pepper spray can, I maintained my focus on him as he continued to back away, chuckling. Feeling that it was safe enough, I turned my back and entered the shop. I approached the cashier and requested my change. I mentioned to the cashier that the man was making me incredibly uncomfortable, but it seemed as though he didn't fully comprehend the situation or what I was trying to convey. After obtaining my change, I glanced through the glass door into the parking lot before departing. There was no sign of that man anywhere. I was apprehensive about stepping outside. What if he was hiding somewhere? Taking a deep breath, I stepped out onto the sidewalk in front of the shop, choosing not to leave its vicinity. I remained there, scanning my surroundings, on guard. The man was gone, out of sight, which meant he was most likely hiding. Eventually, a pickup truck entered the parking lot and pulled up next to one of the pumps. A burly man with a beard emerged from the vehicle, and I approached him, seeking assistance. I asked him to check if there was someone hiding behind my car. Although he appeared bewildered, he obliged my request. As he reached the other side of my car, he yelled, "What are you doing?" The creepy man hastily retreated from behind my car, scurrying into the darkness surrounding the gas station. The helpful stranger advised me to be cautious in his thick southern accent. Leaving the parking lot in a hurry, I continued the rest of my drive. It was abundantly clear that the creepy man had been waiting for an opportunity to strike as soon as I unlocked my car doors. The whole experience deeply disturbed me, and I couldn't shake off the lingering feeling of unease.